Hi, you're listening to Book Chat with author Vivian E. Moore.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. This podcast really shows us how we can all learn, live, and thrive off of each other. By sharing our knowledge through our conversations, we will impart some knowledge whilst learning ourselves how to progress even further. Here is your host.
Hello and welcome to Book Chat. I am your host, author Vivian Moore. And I hope everyone had a great week. I hope you're having a great weekend. Well, today, guys, I promised you that we would have a guest on the show, and we do. So we have with us today Jason Stershic, and he is the host of podcast The Agent Palmer. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Jason.
Thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome. We went through a few hurdles to get here, but we finally made it, and I'm happy about that. And I'm thrilled to have you on to talk about what you do. So if you will, just tell us a little about Jason first.
Yeah, it's funny. I've actually been redoing or redrafting all of my about pages because they're hopelessly out of date. I think we all kind of deal with that.
Yeah.
You write an about page when you launch something, and
Yes.
then years go by,
Yeah.
and then you go, oh, I haven't touched that in forever.
Yes. I know it.
I made it more complicated on myself by creating a persona, if you will, a brand.
Yes.
I am Agent Palmer, right?
Oh.
Like, let's just get that. Like,
Okay.
I'm not a different person, right? Like, you're talking to Jason, you're talking to Agent Palmer. It's not unique. I don't like something more or less depending on who I am.
Okay.
But when I started the blog, I had a professional career where I did some professional blogging, and I wanted to keep my professional work and the blogs I wrote for my profession separate, right? So it was like, all right, well, I'll just be Agent Palmer for my personal, and it really started because I needed to write more.
Okay.
The best exercise for becoming a better writer is just writing more.
Exactly.
And I was like, all right, well, this is great. And so, I just started little by little, like, I'll write about this, I'll write about that. And then it kind of became like it was a side thing, and it wasn't that important to me. I feel like things change over time. And at one point, I bought a house. I moved into the house, and I went, I haven't written in 3-4 months.
Wow,
right?
that's a long time.
Buying a house is not a simple thing. Neither is moving.
No, and
so, between painting and unpacking and packing and so I made a decision that I was going to double down on the blog. And so I was like, and, at that time, like right before then, I was writing sporadically at best. So I was like, all right, I'm doubling down. I started this in November because I did a rolling year. I said, for the next 12 months, I'm going to put out 2 blog posts a week. Okay. Period, the end. And my average was actually better than that because I'm a super, super overachiever.
That's not necessarily a bad thing.
Well, it depends, right? So
yeah.
I put out a blog post every Monday and Thursday for the next 12 months. And I kind of really found my stride as a writer, kind of writing, and I found a process that worked too, for creating a schedule and being like, it's easier to write when you know what you're going to write. Like, I kind of envy fiction writers or even nonfiction writers who there's an end to their book and they have it.
Okay. I was wondering.
I sit down,
Go ahead.
No, I sat, before I did the schedule, it was like, all right, I got a blog post tomorrow. Sit down in front of a computer, open empty Word doc. What am I going to write about?
That sounds like me on Saturdays.
Well, it's so much easier when it's like I sat down months ago and wrote out a rough blog schedule,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, oh, tonight I know I'm writing about X movie.
Mm-hmm.
So yesterday I watched the movie. I made notes. So today when I sit down in front of blank doc, I have notes.
Yes.
I have quotes.
Yes.
I have a title. I have a topic. It's
Everything
so
you
much
need.
easier.
Yes, everything you need to have that. It's sort of like a flow chart, sort of, kind of, so that way you know exactly what you need to do and all of those things. I don't necessarily do flow charts, but I do take notes like you, because I just find that's easier. You know, if I have to refer back to something, or if I want to make sure that everything is going in the direction that I want it to, then I can just refer back to that. I was wondering why. I know you said that you wanted that anonymity between your personal blog and your business blog, so you just chose the Agent Palmer. But I wanted to know if that had any substance for, you know, maybe like a comic character or something like that.
Actually, yes. Not a comic character, but it absolutely has some substance.
Okay.
Right before I started a side hustle business building websites back in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And I went through a lot of business titles, and I had a few that I didn't use that I kind of liked.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, for some reason, around that time, I started watching old Michael Caine.
Oh, I love him.
movies.
Yes, Alfie. That's one of my
Michael
favorites.
Caine was a spy in the Ipcress file,
Mm-hmm.
and subsequently in $1 Billion Brain and Bullet to Beijing,
Mm-hmm.
and he was literally Harry Palmer in
Okay.
those movies.
Okay.
That was the character. And it comes from a Len Deighton novel. It comes from Len Deighton novels of the same name.
Mm-hmm.
And in those novels, he's the unnamed spy, but on the screen as Michael Caine, he's Agent Harry Palmer.
Okay.
And I was like, well, I'm just gonna. I liked the name so much. And I loved the movies, and I like them because he's not James Bond.
Right.
He cooks for himself. He's not suave with the ladies.
Mm-hmm.
He does the dirty work. You see him just in parts of movies. He's literally just doing like the boring surveillance stuff. It's not all cool, and I
Mm-hmm.
liked that.
Yeah.
And it appealed to like the work aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I got Agent Palmer from.
All right. Pretty cool. I like that. I like that a lot. I checked out a few things on your page, and it looks like you have a little bit of everything for everyone. But so we covered the Agent Palmer, where you got that moniker or title. And so now I want to talk a little bit about your podcast, some of the things that you talk about on your podcast. I know it's released every other Tuesday, but I just want to know some of the topics that you cover on your podcast.
Yeah, it's very much a reflection of the blog. The easy answer is I'm doing it for myself.
Okay.
So as long as I remain entertained and energetic, the blog I will continue to write, and
Okay.
the podcast I will continue to record in that same level.
Okay.
I very much, I don't expect even my most ardent fans to like listen to every episode, because I don't think every single one of us, we all have our own things that interest us. And
Right.
I've had authors on, I've had health professionals, I've had a philosophy author, sound effects guys, visual effects people, any number of different types of authors as well. And I just feel like everybody has a story.
Right.
And
Right.
there's something to be learned from everyone, or at least shared, or,
Yes.
At minimum an entertaining story. And I just want to find that from
Right.
everyone.
Right.
And it's weird. I'm starting to do a little reflection on it, because it so happens that I'm, this fall, my blog turns 10. Which I
Wow.
honestly didn't realize until yesterday.
Wow.
The podcast is approaching 50 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not necessarily feeling nostalgic for like, oh, but you do. Like I said, I was writing about pages, so this is the research I did,
Mm-hmm.
and you go and when did I start that? When did I post the first? Okay, and so I'm looking back, and the first 40 episodes that I've done, a lot of them have been about process and storytelling. But I don't know what the next 40 are going to be about. So for now, that just happens to be where the conversations end up. And it could be because of me, as I'm obviously a common theme in all of those.
Yes.
But it could also just be the people I'm having on. I have a lot of creative types on, like graphic designers and artists and musicians. So, but I'm interested in process. Other people have different processes. What inspires them? What gets them through the boring stuff?
Yeah.
Right? I'm never going to be the person that says having a blog is all joy.
No,
having
it's
a podcast is all joy.
It's
There's
not.
a lot of work.
It is. It's a ton of work involved in it. But I think that's good because you leave it open for discovery, as far as what you want to talk about. So, you don't paint yourself in a box. You leave it open. And I think that's great because, for myself, for my podcast, which we're not on here to talk about me, we're on here to talk about you. But, I talk about books and writing, because, that's what interests me. That's what I'm good at. So I wanted to have you on, and to me, it's just it's just wonderful to have different points of views, and maybe not cover the same topics, especially if that's not what you do, but to just have other people on to talk about what they do, their points of views, and it sounds so interesting. To have the, I always call that part the mechanics, when you have people on to talk about, the different aspects of whatever trade, they're in, whether it's writing, music, or whatever. A lot of times you don't get that behind the scene look. You just, you get to talk about what they're doing and all of those things, but you don't get the mechanics of, what makes them tick. So I think that's good. I like that. When I was looking at your site, and I wanted to cover a few of your blog topics. I know you mentioned it, in the podcast and things like that, but if we could just, sort of broaden that a little bit about the things that you blog about.
Yeah, over the last year, almost 2 or 3 years, I've become a voracious reader.
Okay.
And really what happened was a couple of years ago, I've always enjoyed reading, but a couple of years ago I started, the whole, I'm going to read one book a month. And I know a lot of people that's where it starts, and they either become huge voracious readers and read like 50 books a year, or they don't have the time, and that 1 year of 12 books is a struggle. They read 3 books in December and say, "Hey, I made it." I made it an effort to, just give myself one chapter before bed every night at minimum. I'd be lying if I said I only read one chapter. No, I read a ton. But I turned myself into readers. The blog became it got very book heavy at a certain point, and there are points. It's been 10 years. There are points where I was very movie heavy, and now I'm very book heavy.
Well, that's a good balance.
I've got a friend who challenged me this year. Who's we all have our confidants in terms of this stuff, because you want to bounce ideas off of people.
Of course, yes.
And he's like, you can't write just don't write 2 book reviews back to back. He's like, if you write 26 book reviews this year, make sure there's 26 other things that weren't book related, and make sure they're every other at minimum, right? And I took up the challenge, and that's why I have, I have book reviews scheduled and already drafted for, 2 months out from when we are right now, and it's been refreshing to get back to writing in that kind of respect, because I don't have necessarily like OCD, but I won't start one book until I finish writing about the previous one.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good, so you don't get confused, to get the characters confused or whatever.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly why. And so it's been. I'm getting back into writing about some movies. I enjoy older movies,
Mm-hmm.
and sharing. Maybe not the most brilliant, or the big box office ones,
Mm-hmm.
but the lesser known ones. And
Mm-hmm.
I've written about television when I feel like it. I just don't watch that much of it.
Yeah.
And then I love music, and so I write about music on occasion. I last year I started a series. It's just an ongoing series,
Mm-hmm.
And it's called Track by Track, where I take one album and I just kind of not even review it,
Mm-hmm.
but just explain why I like it track by track.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in an era of on-demand music and streaming music with
Yes.
Spotify and Amazon and Apple,
Yes.
very few people take the time to listen to an album beginning to end, and I still do that.
Yes.
And there are albums specifically that I do that with that I want to share with people, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's kind of wonderful to just be like, all right, well today I'm drafting this post about this album.
Mm-hmm.
The hard part becomes, what album do you use? I've got a bunch that I would like to do at a certain point, and I make lists on occasion. I don't do it often, but yeah, no. The blog is just like the podcast in that
Mm-hmm.
regard. It's a way to stretch myself.
Well,
If I can write about things or talk about things that are either new to me,
Mm-hmm.
that's all the more exciting. But
Mm-hmm.
new to you, that's, I want you to learn something or find something.
Right. And I think that's the beauty of it all, because you're sharing the love, across the board with everything, and not just one thing. And you feature different topics and things of that nature that they're not along the same lines. Like you said, you like to do reviews on books and also on the music. So to me, that's showing a great appreciation, for those things. And I'm sure that the whoever the albums that you're featuring, I'm pretty sure if they're not too old, or if people are familiar with those those musicians and artists, that it probably it brings up nostalgia for them, because they probably, I remember that, and so they get a deeper appreciation for what you do. So your blog that's coming up next Tuesday, have you decided what that's going to be?
No. I mean, I do. I know the next one is a book.
Okay.
But, I've got about 6 different book reviews drafted. I'm not sure which one's going to make the cut.
Oh, okay.
And it's really just which one, because I'm not afraid of editing.
Mm-hmm.
So really, what'll happen is I'll just take a look and see where I'm at
Mm-hmm.
with all of them, and which one is in the tip-toppiest shape, and go from there. I think the other part is, and this is something I've learned through podcasting in other circles, but
Mm-hmm.
also from writing, is I need to expand my horizons
Mm-hmm.
by getting away from the mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
So I've featured independent books,
Okay.
because I've read independent books,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like that's important.
It is.
It's just like listening to independent music,
Yes.
or
Yes.
watching a YouTube short where this person's putting a passion into it, and you're the 10th viewer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it's good, it's good. You should share that with people.
Exactly.
So there's more than, and so I've been trying to have a, wherever the, like, not necessarily put Jesus at the wheel, or
Mm-hmm.
let the wind take you where you'll go, right?
Right.
Like, just kind of if I see a book promoted on Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
like, just read the description, like, take a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't know anything about it, maybe you'll enjoy it, right? And
Exactly.
so I've been kind of I've read a lot of things over the last couple of years as I've turned myself into a reader where I don't think I would have, like, I wouldn't have even been interested in the book years ago, and now I'm excited to finish it.
Right. Not only it, and you know, that to me is wonderful. I did a show a couple of weeks ago called "Where Is the Love," and I was talking about how important it is for book reviewers, you know, to give reviews on the books that they read, you know, not just read them and you know, and then that's it. You close it and you move on to the next one, but to actually, you know, give a review, because, you know, independent authors, their livelihoods depend on those book reviews. They really do. And that's why I appreciate you so much, because I was silently applauding you when you said that, you know, because I do the same thing. You know, if it's a book that maybe, you know, a couple of people have read, and then I will go out there and read the synopsis of it as well. And I'm like, oh, this is a good book. I wonder why, you know, so many, you know, not many people have discovered it yet. But that's how they discover it, from those book reviews, you know, and you know, the book could be just excellent, but no one will ever know if no one ever writes a book review. And then I've read books that had like over 1,000 reviews. And then I was like, well, okay, this must have been a great book. You know, it had all these reviews. And then I started reading it, and I'm like, this book is garbage. I don't know how it, I don't know what they were reading, but
I've gotten lucky. I don't like to name names,
okay.
But I did write one bad book review in all of the posts I've ever. And I look, if you want to go through all 600, I don't know how many, 700 to 800 posts. I don't know how many posts I've got right now. And I'm sure it's less. I'm sure it's only like 200 if it's only book reviews, or maybe 150 or something. But there's one bad one in there, and I was trying to be as constructive as possible. But I've gotten really lucky that I haven't, like that, I called that one a hate read. Like after about like I got a third of the way through, because I need to finish it. Like I won't just quit. But I just didn't like it. But I will tell you, my process for book reviews is like I take notes as I'm writing or as I'm reading, so that I can go back and collect those notes. So if on page 13 there's something interesting, well, I'm also not going to highlight or write in my book, so I just pull out my phone and go on page 13 and the, you know, top paragraph or the bottom first sentence in the bottom paragraph or whatever. And then after I finish reading, before I write my review, I go back through and I type all of those notes into a doc, which is wonderful. And I feel like it's something that I feel like everyone should do, even if you're not going to write about it, because you know, you close the book and you go, wow, this is a journey. But then if you go pull quotes from like page 50, from page 80, from page 140, when you're pulling these things and you're looking at them again, even if you don't type them up, you appreciate the story or the narrative that the author has given you, because you're literally going back into the book and going, wow, well, that's something. And I always love to include quotes. I haven't found a book where I have written reviews where I haven't included quotes, but for the most part I try to, because you want to give people a taste of who the author is.
Exactly, and those are gems. Yeah,
and I'm not the author. Like, I'm telling you about it, but let the author say it in their words.
Right.
I try and stay away from back cover blurbs. I know most of the time those aren't written by authors.
Right.
And I'll be honest, I've read a lot of books without knowing what they were about.
Okay. Surprise.
I've done that, and it's amazing when you finish a book and then you read the back cover and went, well, I was really surprised by that. But I wouldn't have been, because it's right there on the back cover.
Right. Well, you know, I think that adds a little bit more mystery to the story too, if you don't know where the journey is going to take you. So that's not a bad thing, but most readers, they want to know what is this story about. I mean, they, especially if it's a specific genre or whatever, if it's in the romance genre, then straight away that of course is dealing with romance and things of that nature. And you were talking about jotting down notes and things like that. So I take it that you're reading physical books and not doing electronic books, Kindles, and things like that.
I've had a couple advanced copies of books that I've read on Kindle, but
Okay.
I'm such an old man. Like, I'm not 90, but
No.
I might as well be. Like I prefer a physical book.
Okay, yeah.
And I've actually become a collector, I guess. I've actually started deciding to upgrade some of my library and being like, you know what? I want a hardcover version of that book.
Yes.
That book speaks to me on a level that I shouldn't just have a soft cover. I'm not done with it yet, but I took the character, Harry Palmer, from a movie based on Len Dayton's book. Len Dayton wrote like 60 books.
Wow.
I have all of them.
Wow.
And I haven't read all of them. I've actually been reading them in the order they were published. So I have like 8 or 9 left. But it means I've got 40 or 50 behind me. And I'm actually slowed down the amount of, like, I'm putting more books in between them. Because I know when I reach the end, there will be no more. But it's kind of been interesting. And he's not the only author that I'm just devouring. I'm also reading through all of Clive Barker's work. He's done quite a bit of, he's known for horror, but he's also done quite a bit of, like, fiction, just straight up fantasy. And Douglas Copeland is a bit of a satirist. And I've been reading through all of his stuff. So there's definitely some authors, aside from just, whatever comes my way or what people suggest to me, there's definitely some authors I always go to. And those are, pieces of a collection I want to, hold. Plus, I just, there is something about, and you don't notice it day to day necessarily, but there's something about watching the journey of your bookmark from the front cover to the back cover that I know an ebook can tell you you're 65% of the way done with this book.
Right.
It's just not the same of seeing the bookmark move through the pages.
I know. And I used to be like that, but then I just found that it was easier to just, do the Kindle thing when reading. And a lot of times, the majority of the time, I listen to audiobooks because that way I can listen to a book a day, because I'm one of those avid readers. I love reading books. And, if the stories are short enough, I can read at least 2 in a day, because I listen while I'm working. So that helps a lot. It helps me get through my day. But I'm like you. I used to be like that too. I would go into a bookstore, or, if it was at a flea market and they had books and things like that, it was literally like a child in a candy store. Seriously, because I love books just that much. And it's just something about when you go into a bookstore, especially a bookstore that sells, they sell new books, but they sell older books too. And it's just something about that smell. It reminds me of the library. Whenever you would go into the library and it would just have that, to me, it just had that smell of knowledge, because it was just filled with everything. And that was one of the reasons why, I loved physical books, but eventually you do run out of space, to put them all. I have an attic filled with books, but and I also have, electronic devices that are filled with books too. But, with those, they're easier to sort and easier to store than just having the physical book. But, but I do agree with you. I love that aspect of reading, to actually touch a page and flip a page. And my sister and I, we always had this argument because, I always accused her of being an abuser of books, because she would dog ear the pages and things like that, and lay the book down flat, and it breaks the spine. I was like, don't do that. That's why they make bookmarks. You need to learn how to use them. I'm like, you treat those books with dignity and you treat them with respect. And I go so far as to say I take the dust jacket off the book and I put it on the shelf where the book belongs. Yes.
So maintains its space.
Yes.
On the shelf.
Yes.
And then I read it and then I put it back. Yeah, I'm with you. I know there's a limit.
Yes.
You know there's a limit.
Yes.
In fact, I'm close to reaching that limit. Before I was a voracious reader, 4, 5, 6 years ago, I had just, shelves, but like with knickknacks on them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the knickknacks have all kind of been like thrown away or whatever, and now I think I have room for
more books.
Like a couple more books, but I'm slowly running out of space.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going through my library going like, and look, I say library, I mean bookcases in my office, bookcases in my living room,
it's a library.
in my bedroom.
It is. That's your library.
Well, yeah, my house is my library.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I'm starting to look at old books that are in. I think the new goal is I want to have read everything in my house.
Okay.
And if I have something in my house that's not interesting to me, I'm just not going to read it. But I'll probably give it a try anyway, and I'll just decide is it worth keeping or not. Is a whole different.
Well, you could have it. One of the great things of having a library is having something for everyone. So when we can start having guests again, and if they want to read a book, just keep those books that don't necessarily, pique your interest. Keep them for guests. You never know. They may like it. And it's good to have a variety of different things. So
comics. I got rid of a lot of comics in order to make room for books on my shelf.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it did help that I took all of my CDs and DVDs and put them in binders.
Yes.
Which also made room on my shelf.
Yes, that's a good storage
plan.
plan.
Definitely frugal. Like, how can I make more room for books?
Mm-hmm.
It became a conquest.
Well, you can't go wrong there, especially not with me because, like I said, I love books. I love reading. So, we share that same interest there. So, but I have enjoyed talking with you so much, just talking about simple things, and I love that, and I wish you great success, continued success for your podcast and your blog topics. And if you don't mind, if you'll just tell the listeners how they can reach out to you across social media.
Yeah, sure.
and everything else.
Yeah, the blog is agentpalmer.com. The podcast is thepalmerfiles.com. And I have a Twitter for each of them. So myself is just at Agent Palmer. The show is at the Palmer Files. And I do have a Facebook, facebook.com/Agent Palmer.
Okay.
I'm not on it quite as much as I am Twitter, which is my main social network.
Okay.
And if you're not on any of those things and you still want to reach out to me, the email is theagentpalmer@gmail.com.
All right, cool beans. All right, guys, you heard him. And again, Jason, thank you so very much for agreeing to come on to the show and talk about what you do and to talk about your podcast. I appreciate that so very much for being so agreeable because, a lot of people won't do that if they have their own podcast. So I thank you for doing that. I really do. And
thank you. This was wonderful. I had a blast.
Well, I did too, and thank you so much for saying that. And hopefully, we'll get to talk again.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, you enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, folks. So that was Jason Stershic, better known as the Agent Palmer, and I definitely enjoyed having him on our show today, talking about a lot of great things, and books are right up my alley. So I'm so glad we had a chance to discuss that. So I know I've kept you longer than we usually do on Saturdays, but it was so worth the effort and the time to just to spend a great deal of it just talking about things that I love, and I hope that you love it too. But before I let you go, I want to make sure that I give you a few of these URLs so you can reach out to me and stay in contact with Book Chat as well. And of course, the first one is the URL https://www.spreaker.com/user/author Vivian Moore. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And Instagram is by invitation only. But if you send me a request, I promise you I will respond to it as quickly as possible. Also, you can check out my website, and that is at https://authorvivianmore.com or either authorehshepard.com. You can also check out my blog, which is at https://vivianemore.blogspot.com. And also, if you don't have Spreaker, you can find the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Castbox, Deezer, Podcast Addict, Podchaser, YouTube, SoundCloud, JioSaven, Audible.com, Verbal, spelled VURBL, and Luminary. All right, folks, so that is our show for today. And tomorrow is worship day. So I want you to remember to invite your family members and your neighbors and your friends to listen in on those sermons if they have not gone back to the physical building. If you're doing live broadcast of church, or if you're doing it over the phone line, just share that information with those individuals, and I'm sure that they will be the better for it. And also let children listen in too, because it's important that they also hear the word, because we all need to hear a word these times, these troubling times. So it can only help. And also remember to tell someone that you love them, because tomorrow is not promised. Today may be the only chance you get to say that. So I love you. I hope you love me back. Until the next time you hear my voice, God bless you and goodbye.
Loved what you've heard on this week's episode? Well, the answer is simple. It would mean the world to us if you could head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review and feedback. Spreading the word really is the best way to grow our podcast and achieve even greater things. Thank you.